My Mustang was more than just an old car to me. I had spent years restoring every detail until it looked perfect. It sat proudly in my driveway, protected and carefully maintained. Then my neighbor decided her son should have it. I had owned the Mustang for years. Every scratch, chrome piece, and mechanical detail had a story behind it. I never loaned it out casually because it was extremely valuable to me. Unfortunately, my HOA neighbor knew exactly how much I loved it. My neighbor had been asking about the car for months. She always talked about how much her son liked classic Mustangs. I politely told her the car wasn't for sale. She apparently didn't like that answer. One afternoon, she brought her son over to see the Mustang again. Her son immediately started talking about driving it. I told them clearly that nobody had permission to take the car. My neighbor simply smiled and said, "We'll see." The next day, she claimed the HOA had rules about neighborhood vehicles. She said my Mustang was creating an appearance problem. I asked her to show me the rule that gave her authority over my car. She couldn't produce one. That evening, she made a phone call that changed everything. She told someone that my Mustang needed to be removed immediately. Her son stood beside her looking excited and confused. I had no idea she had decided to involve the police. A few minutes later, police cars started arriving outside my house. At first, I couldn't understand why there were so many officers. My neighbor immediately pointed toward my Mustang. Then she demanded that the officers take the car. She loudly claimed that the HOA had authorized the vehicle to be removed. She even insisted the Mustang belonged with her son. The officers looked at each other, as if something wasn't adding up. Then the senior officer walked directly toward me. The senior officer asked me who owned the Mustang. I calmly told him that I did. He asked for my identification and registration documents. I handed everything over without saying another word. The officer studied the documents carefully. He compared the registration with the Mustang's identification number. Everything matched exactly. Then his expression suddenly changed when he recognized my name. The senior officer looked at me and asked, "Chief?" My neighbor immediately stopped talking. The other officers suddenly straightened their posture. That was when my neighbor realized she had made a huge mistake. I showed them my police chief identification. The officers immediately recognized their own department chief. My neighbor's confident expression disappeared completely. Her plan to use the police against me had collapsed. The officers explained that they couldn't simply take someone's private vehicle. They needed a legitimate legal basis for any seizure. An HOA complaint wasn't enough to create that authority. My neighbor suddenly had nothing to say. She insisted that the HOA had told her the car could be removed. The officer asked her to provide that authorization. She searched through her phone but couldn't show anything legitimate. Her entire story was falling apart in front of everyone. Her son finally admitted he only wanted to see the Mustang. He said he never expected his mother to send police officers. The officers told him the vehicle belonged to someone else. He quietly apologized for the confusion. The senior officer told my neighbor that the matter was over. Nobody was taking my Mustang anywhere. He also reminded her that HOA rules didn't replace actual law. Her face turned red as she realized everyone had heard it. The officers stayed for a few more minutes to document what happened. I thanked them for handling the situation professionally. My neighbor stood silently beside her son. The Mustang never moved an inch. One by one, the police cruisers left the street. My neighbor and her son finally walked back toward their house. The neighborhood returned to its normal peaceful afternoon. But the story wasn't over for my neighbor. I looked at the Mustang and laughed at how ridiculous the whole situation had become. My neighbor thought an HOA complaint could make my property hers. Then she sent police officers to take a car that belonged to their own chief. That was a lesson she wasn't going to forget. My Mustang stayed exactly where it belonged, right in my driveway. The HOA couldn't claim it, and neither could my neighbor's son. The officers who arrived to take my car ended up saluting their own chief. And that was the day my neighbor learned who she had really called.